Welcome to the Danny Clinkscale Reasonably Irreverent podcast. Insightful and witty commentary, probing interviews, and detours from the beaten path.
Welcome to Arts and Lifestyle Wednesday, presented by Cinematic Visions, and we continue to battle our way through things, and that's the same thing in the music industry as well, trying to find new and different ways to get the product out, to have the fans have some new experiences without clubs open, without concerts being played, without people being able to gather, without clubs being open. And all those things are big challenges, and maybe big challenges as well to writers and commentators about music like Danny and Tim, who come together for Danny and Tim's Music Scene every couple of weeks. But music's so universal. There's so many evergreen topics that it's always fun to get together and talk about them. And today we'll talk about record stores and vintage bands and vinyl and how times when you're supposed to have big award shows and how they're being adapted to that for network television and the country music scene. We always ball together a whole bunch of different stuff when we get together with Tim, and it's a little bit remotely now as I'm in a studio of Cinematic Visions, as a matter of fact, one of my fine sponsors, and the title sponsor of this particular segment. And Tim is safe on the phone at his home, where everybody should be. I think we're doing better about that. That's one of the things we're going to talk about. We always get together with our guests, and in part, it's always going to be about how this strange and different life is, but then we can move on to the things that are passion for us. On Mondays, I'll do sports. On Fridays, I'll do a personality. On Wednesdays, I'll do a little music, all kinds of different things, and that's the way we're getting through it, and I think we're starting to get through it a little bit more successfully. That's part of where we'll take off with Tim Finn coming up next on Danny and Tim's Music Scene.
Cinematic Visions has been an affordable solution for professional media production in Kansas City since 2003, offering award-winning video production and creation, as well as a wide array of digital and social media management services. From planning, scripting, filming, editing, and post-production, to delivering your product to a watching world, Cinematic Visions will provide professional and affordable services for you and your business with the necessary return on investment to make it all worthwhile. Cinematic Visions' goal is to unlock the power of storytelling through video and a strong online presence for your company. Beyond the numbers, they want to inspire and evoke your clients to feel and act. Let my friends at Cinematic Visions embed your brand where it belongs, in your customers' minds. You can find them online at cinematicvisions.com or with a quick phone call at 816-600-6300.
For many people, a family law case will be one of the most difficult experiences in their life. The law firm of Kenneth McRae will help you through it. Personal and effective help from Ken in concert with you will develop a unique strategy for your unique case. As Ken always says, divorce can be civil law, not civil war. Licensed in Kansas? Visit McRaeLawOffice.com or call 913-972-4765.
We're visiting with Larry Marshall, former Chiefs defensive back and punt returner, and now a Chiefs ambassador. Larry is a former pro football player with the aches and pains that come with that, and moving on in age, as we all are. What do the Canaway CBD products do for you?
It's been a great relief for me. Being a punt and kickoff returner, collisions were a mainstay of my career, and these Canaway products, the salve especially, has really helped me try to get through every day with the aches and pains that I've had over a career of 7+ years in the NFL.
I get similar benefits as well, particularly with my back. Certainly wasn't a football player. What's the best way for our listeners to get more information about the great products themselves?
Well, I'm so enthused about it, Dana. They just contacted me at larrymarshall.canaway.com, and I can give them all the information they need to help them get through the day as well.
Start gaining all the benefits that Larry and I do from the trusted and reliable line of Canaway products. As Larry said, visit larrymarshall.canaway.com and get information on all the great products from Canaway.
If you'd like to join these and other great sponsors and market your business to a growing and engaged audience, contact us at danny@dannyclinkscale.com. Look forward to hearing from you.
Well, Tim, as we tape this, it's a beautiful day outside, and sometimes when I'm outside and I'm not inside listening to music or doing a podcast or writing something, it's when I'm outside that I'm most struck about the fact that I can't believe that this is actually happening, that we have to stay inside, that there's a virus out there that we can't see. And it is when it's nice and you're outside or you're taking a walk at night, which I know you like to do, that it seems the most incredible what we're going through.
Yeah, I guess I'm kind of numb to it now, but when you really stop and think about it, like I walk at night, like I said, and just the complete lack of traffic anywhere or signs of human life. It's kind of eerie and surreal. And then just to make it worse, you just don't know when it's going to end, or whether it's going to be 3 weeks, 3 months, 6 months. It's so. I mean, I try not to stress about it and think too much about it, because that's all you can do, is not worry until it passes.
What do you think you miss the most, and what do you think you have been able to embrace? I think we're somewhat kindred spirits in the fact that you have to kind of get yourself to be numb to it. You have to try to find creative ways to, I take a drive usually at the end of the day, and my wife and I took a drive on Sunday, which we're doing once a week together, and just a way to get out when you're not around anybody. Yes. What are you embracing, and what do you think is the thing that's bugging you the most?
Well, I am playing more music, and going back into my record collection and playing bands and artists I hadn't played in a while, and kind of rediscovering some music that I've had for a while but just haven't listened to. Reading, watching a lot of TV, but focusing more on documentaries and educational stuff than just junk TV. Although I did watch Tiger King.
All right, I'm gonna test the waters here. My daughter I talked to the other day, she's a big fan. I've heard, but it seems to me generally, I'll accept my daughter, accept EXCEPT. Somehow it seems like the more learned, that's not fair, but I guess the people that I respect their opinion the most are lesser fans. Is that fair or not?
I didn't find it at all amusing. I found it disturbing. Just that whole world, that environment, what's being done to the animals, how lots of people are being exploited, and it was just really, it's just real seamy. And after I watched it, I felt like I needed to take a shower, because I didn't find a lot of humor in it. I know some people did, just thought it was hilarious because he's so outlandish, but I came away with it thinking, I guess I didn't really need to know that world existed. But,
let's get back to music. That's more fun. And
right, yeah.
And one way that people are trying indeed to get their music out is through various online Facebook things, and we're going to talk about some new music that you've discovered in our second segment. And we've seen networks do different things, like CBS did on Sunday. It was supposed to be the Country Music Awards night, and instead they went into people's homes. And I know a couple of weeks ago we talked about one of those shows they were doing, and it kind of seems novel and cute to be inside somebody's living room for a while, but then it maybe doesn't get so great. But in my experience from the one the other day, it was one thing that was not that good is that they seemed to go in. They went into each commercial break, and I only lasted 3 commercial breaks with great performances from past Country Music Awards, and they'd play it for about 20 seconds, and then it'd be time for the commercials. And this was after 3 acts had done their thing in their living room or separately together in their living rooms. And all it did is make me say, why don't they just play a bunch of those old great performances? That makes sense to me.
Right. And I don't check out, I don't think I have access to country music television, but that would make sense just to repeat those award shows, because the music is pretty universally really good, and all the major stars are there. I do watch a lot of Access channel. They replay the classic concerts. They have a lot of rock documentaries. I watched a really great one on Genesis last week. And then they do the classic albums where we'll spend an hour revisiting how an album was produced and put together. The one on Steely Dan's Asia was really good. And also, if you get Prime, they have a bunch of those available, so you can watch them anytime. But yeah, that's the stuff I've been focusing on, and just sort of enriching my, music knowledge and getting into music history, and it helps pass the time.
It does indeed. One thing I saw somebody write, I think maybe Sam Melander wrote it. Whoever wrote it, it was a smart thing to write. It was that you sometimes feel like you're just passing time or killing time instead of making your time productive. And I guess that's something we have to work at a little bit, because sometimes you're just like, well, that's just they're cleaning out that closet. That was a way to kill another hour, and that's just not the way you want to live, right?
Yeah, I mean, you want to spend as much time doing meaningful tasks or chores or otherwise if you can, instead of just waiting for the next day to come. I mean, it's such a grind. It can be hard to do that all day, every day. But yeah, I know what you're saying. It's just so unprecedented that most of us are stuck in our houses for all but an hour or so every day.
Maybe it's just preparing us for old age, Tim. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I'm more than ready now, I guess. It's even been a month.
Right.
It feels like it's been 6.
Yeah, absolutely.
But like someone said, it's at least it's happening now when the days are getting longer, because if this was happening in October, November, it would be even worse.
Absolutely. I mean, I've traveled a couple of times to Alaska for the Great Alaska Shootout in the middle of December, and the days were like 5 hours long. And boy, I mean, it can really, and also gloomy days seem that much gloomier. We love a nice sunny day now. So, but I referenced that special that CBS did about the or in place of the Country Music Awards, and also recently I viewed on PBS the Mark Twain Awards, which are given out on March 4th, and that's a music writing. I don't know if it's just related to music, but anyway, in this case it was Garth Brooks, and he was fantastic as usual. But both of those shows, the CBS one and the PBS one, were led off by Keith Urban, and he really is somebody who has a great journey in his life, not just his musical life. But right now, he's after a long career, a successful career. He seems to be one of the real faces of country music, and pops up everywhere. He's a great guitarist, a great musician. He plays sort of a mashup of different things. I'm really impressed with Keith Urban on many levels.
Yeah, I've never spoken to him or anything, but I've seen him several times. He's an outstanding entertainer. Like you said, he's a really accomplished guitarist. And his music, it's played in country radio and country formats, but it's not much like everything else you hear on country radio. I consider him and Brad Paisley to be sort of outliers. They have their own style, they have their own personalities, and they're not following any trends. They just have a certain way of writing songs or performing that separates them from most of what's on country radio, and it lasts. Because I think the first time I saw Brad Paisley was like in 20 years ago, and he's still as popular now as he was then.
Right, and both of those guys seem to have a certain regular guy appeal. They're obviously not. They're huge stars, but they create, and I think it seems genuine for both of them. They seem to be people you could just, well, in Keith's case, I don't know if you want to do this anymore, but go out and have a beer with.
Yeah, especially Brad Paisley. Yeah, and I think he is genuinely the way he comes off on stage and even in commercials. He's funny, he's witty, and he's pretty low key. And he's another fabulous guitar player. Really, really talented, all around great voice, and he can play his instrument really well.
We've talked many times about the way that music moves along in different genres and everything, and different times, and it seems now that we're talking about big star. And I talked about Keith Urban popping up on everywhere and Brad Paisley and people. Those people aren't necessarily making hit singles all the time anymore. They're just big artists, and occasionally it'll happen, but it seems like we've, instead of maybe, we don't want to say back in the good old days, but through a lot of different times in the music, what we would consider hit songs would be across a breadth of music. Right now, it seems like if somebody's going to have something that sells big, and things don't sell as big as they used to, obviously, it will come from the area of hip-hop generally, or a mashup with a female singer in that genre, and country. And everybody else kind of just has their own area where people can discover them, but it's not necessarily a quote-unquote hit, if that exists anymore.
Yeah, I don't follow commercial radio much at all, and I don't look at the charts very much unless I need to for a story. But when Bill Withers died last week, I was looking up Ain't No Sunshine came out in 1971, and I was looking at that year in music and what the hits songs were, and they were by such a wide and varied array of artists in different genres. There was R&B, there was soul, there was pop, there was rock, like the Bee Gees and the Beatles, and then there was Aretha Franklin and Al Green, and all had hits on the chart that year. And it was the radio was great to listen to because you never knew exactly what you're going to hear next. You might hear Johnny Cash, and then you'll have Harveyville and the Raiders, and you'll hear Al Green or whatever. It's just there were no hard and fast formats, and now, like you said, it's so strictly formatted that you know what you're going to hear pretty much when you turn on a country radio station, and it's to me it's just the same wall of sound, and there's just so little variety anymore. And I guess people aren't. I mean, radio still matters a lot. If you're going to have a hit, you're going to need to get it on radio. But there's so many other ways to find music and discover it. And that's where I am. I get on Spotify and I hunt around for other recommendations on other websites. And most of what I listen to isn't on the radio.
Right, absolutely. And it just also is a case where certain eras of music, and hey, there have been bad hit songs forever. I mean, that's a phenomenon that we'll maybe never be able to figure out. Is if you figure you have good musical taste, you'll be like how can this particular song have swept? Even sometimes a bad song you can get it. Okay, that's got a good hook, but other times you're like just scratching your head. Even at times when great artists came out, but when you look back at chart times in certain times, like maybe 1969 or 1986 or something like that, that'll be just great bands making great music that stood the test of time. And other times you're like, boy, that wasn't much right there.
Yeah. I mean, it's like everything else, it ebbs and flows. And I guess it's safe to say there's more good music out than ever because so many more people are producing it. But I think the percentage of what's good is definitely less than it used to be. I mean, because there's considerably more, I don't want to say a little bad or boring or trite, or stuff that's already been done.
Well, that's why, and we're going to talk about that next, that this is a good time to either revisit things that you've left in the dustbin or to look for new things, because you've got the time for it. You can explore a little bit more. You can fiddle around on your computer a little bit more. So it should be a real good time of exploration, right?
Right. And one way to support local artists is to find their music, buy it, go on their Bandcamp pages, and and some of them are doing shows on Facebook and they're accepting tips. So since none of us are spending money on concert tickets, there's a way to pay for some music and help out some local musicians.
We'll talk about some of those local musicians coming up next, and a few other things as well in our usual detours with Tim Finn, who is safely in his house, and I'm safely in a studio, and that's the way it ought to be, right, Tim?
That's right.
All right. More coming up next with Danny and Tim.
More of Danny's Reasonably Irreverent podcast after this.
We're here with Joe Spiker, the president of Easton Roofing. And Joe, you worked for other companies in the construction industry. What inspired you to start your own company in Easton Roofing?
Well, you know, Danny, when you are working for somebody else, you oftentimes don't get to see the project through from beginning to end, and you don't get the final control over the customer experience. And I wanted to build a place where people can come and get work done on their house and not have to worry about being treated the wrong way and get a good customer service experience start to finish.
The company slogan is "Where Integrity Matters." Why is that so particularly important to you?
Well, for us, what that means is treating each other with respect at work, treating our clients with respect, and making the right choice, especially when no one's looking. So when you're presented all the time as a contractor with choices that have to be made, are you going to make more money on this if you cut a corner? And we just wanted to make a place and a slogan that said to our people and to whoever is our customer, we're not going to do that. We're going to make the right choice regardless of profit.
Easton Roofing, where integrity matters.
Hey everyone, this is Matt Llewellyn from 23rd Street Brewery, wishing you well while you stay safe during this time of uncertainty. Due to the recent news, you won't be able to get the same in-restaurant experience at the 23rd Street Brewery that you've come to expect over the past 16 years. But you can get the same delicious items prepared with the highest level of staff cleanliness available for carryout and delivery through our partners Eat Street. You can also still enjoy our craft beers and crowlers for to-go service. So remember, stay safe, and together we will all get through this time of uncertainty.
Are you thinking of starting a new business? Does your current business feel stuck? Or are you just trying to grow what you already have? Running a business is a lot of work, and it takes the right team to make it all happen. If you're looking to grow your business, call my friends Ben and Greg over at Fuego Consulting. They put together a company that can help you reach your business goals. Whether you're looking to get online, build a social media strategy, or rebrand your business, they can help. Call Fuego at 816-663-9695 or visit them online at fuegoconsulting.com. Fuego Consulting. Let's grow your business together. My friends at Advanced Sports and Family Chiropractic and Acupuncture are among the most accomplished and trusted clinics in the nation. Only one clinic has been rated in the top 5 in all 3 categories of chiropractic care, acupuncture, and rehabilitation, and that clinic is ASFCA. They have locations in Olathe, Overland Park, Prairie Village, Belton, and Lee Summit. Doctors Brad and Christina Woodle and their accomplished team of doctors and therapists will treat you like family, for the simplest of injuries to the most complicated conditions to avoid surgery. Whether you are seeking treatment for an injury or just looking to stay healthy and fit, this is the place for you. And it's been the place for me for almost 2 years now. I have been a strenuous daily exerciser for years, and as time goes on, that takes its toll. But regular appointments at Advanced Sports and Family Chiropractic and Acupuncture have helped keep me ticking on, and even as the years pile up, their regular care has allowed me to keep to my regimen and feel great. If you want to feel the same, give them a call or visit them at asfca.com/Danny. They accept all insurances and are open Monday through Saturday, and make sure to mention that Danny Clinkscale recommended Advanced Sports and Family Chiropractic and Acupuncture. If you'd like to join these and other great sponsors and market your business to a growing and engaged audience, contact us at Danny@DannyClinkscale.com. Look forward to hearing from you. Welcome back to Danny and Tim's Music Scene, and I was going to touch on this early on, and I forgot it. It's right here in my notes. I don't know why. My handwriting isn't what it used to be, so maybe I just couldn't read it. So I know that you're spending a lot of your time revisiting music that you haven't heard or finding new music. What have you been digging recently?
So I'm going to recommend some local records by local artists. Starting with a band I know you like, Danny, called the MGDs. They have a new record out called Midtown, and they got a Hammond B3 player who's great. 3 or 4 horn players. It's very rock and soulful, a little bit of New Orleans in there. Great live band, but they also capture that spirit on their records, and this is brand new, and I've heard a bunch of them that's really good. There's a band called The Rose Line, Roseline. Colin Halliburton is the singer-songwriter. If you like... it's got a real kind of whiskey tone, Ryan Adams vibe to it, country, folky, really melodic, really good lyrics. And the name of that record is called Good/Grief. A guy, Fritz Acres, and he's a really clever, inventive songwriter. Gets into like a few genres, country, pop, rock, jazz. It's really, really varied and really nice. And then finally, there's this band called Full Bloods, and their new record is called Soft and Virtual Touch, and they're this really nice, catchy, poppy indie rock band. So those are 4 records. It's one other way to support local music and local musicians is to buy the music.
That is great. You talked about finding things to write about, and you're behind the music that came out in Kansas City Magazine a few days ago was with Marion Merritt, a woman who basically was a familiar face in the music scene because she was the person behind the counter at Barnes & Noble, and that was a real go-to place for music. That was a very interesting conversation, dealt with record Store Day, which of course is another thing that will be moved till later in the year, June 30th now. We'll see if that date will hold up. But that was a really interesting conversation. Tell me about it.
Yeah, so Marion, I knew her when she was working at Barnes & Noble. And they always had a really good, vast, diverse selection. And she recommended stuff. She really explored. And when you spend all your time at a music store, you're going to hear a lot of music that most people can't get to. So she was always great for recommendations. She would see what you were buying and say, hey, if you like that, you might like this. And most of the time she was right. So she opened her own store called Records with Merit. And it's just on the western outskirts of Westport. And super great selection. If she doesn't have it, she'll find it for you. And she stocks a lot of rare stuff and obscure stuff, and she's on the radio pretty regularly on KKFI, and she plays some of that stuff, and it's like rare if she plays, let's say, 10 selections if I know more than 2 of the artists, because she really digs deep into catalogs, and so she's a great music resource.
You asked her, and this is an interesting topic, about the revival of vinyl. I have not listened to a new vinyl record in my time recently. My daughters both have turntables, and they both do that. Just explain to me, as somebody who knows music better than I do, what is the appeal, what is the quality of vinyl that you can't get in other mediums?
Well, the sound, for one thing. It sounds better than anything else, I think, if the record's recorded right. I think it's the size. You can read the liner notes. The photography is, the cover art is more dynamic. I just think everything about it is better.
Do we know why the quality is better on a vinyl record?
Well, I just think it's the way it's recorded and the way, it's the technology, I think. I think that's just a better, with CDs, it's digital versus analog, I guess you could say.
Okay, right.
I just think it's warmer. It's got more depth. Like, it just sounds more organic. I don't have a great turntable or great system, and I can pretty much, you can listen close to tell the difference between a CD and the record. But my mediocre system.
So if somebody really had a nice one, then that used to be such a thing, back in the day.
Right.
I mean, they went through the period where everybody, and eventually everything would get smaller, and we'd get to CDs and everything. But there was that period of time where we're having the coolest turntable and the biggest speakers and all that stuff was the thing, and people made the records with that in mind, that these people were, sound heads, and they'd have the guitar lead switch from one speaker to another. That was supposed to be super cool. Right. And in fact, I found it super cool sometimes, as it were. I remember a particular Tommy Bolin song where his lead guitar was like a guitar lead duel from one speaker to another. So I guess that's the type of things that made it fun back in the day, and maybe has somewhat caused a revival.
Yeah, I never thought vinyl would come back. I gave away all my third. I don't know what I do with the stereos I had in college and to show myself for doing it now. But I did not see it coming. And when it started, it seemed like it was something novel that was just sort of wane. But man, we have so many record stores in Kansas City now, and they're all doing well, and they've all managed to carve out their own niche. And some of them, like Mills Record Company over it's on Broadway in Westport, has a huge. She's expanded twice since she opened, so definitely there's a demand for it, and I'm thrilled because I mean they're a lot more expensive now. I mean, I drop at least 20 something for an album, but I think it's worth it. I mean, every bit is worth it, especially to go back and buy records that I had only owned on CD. That's pretty much what I spend it on.
And in this particular article at the end, you list some of the great record stores that will be featured, hopefully on the revised date of June 20th for Record Store Day. As we get close to concluding here, I have a musical question. I have not, and it sort of maybe ties into the era of vinyl and what you talked about in the variety, and it also is a cautionary tale about music as well. I had a very good friend in college who has passed away, went on to become a school teacher, and he was a very eclectic and, well, we all loved him, but he was kind of an odd guy. But he would lead us into directions in musical things that we would explore, and usually it was people who would become famous, and in this case it wasn't. Do you have any idea who Michael Stanley is?
Yeah. I've heard of him. I don't think I own any of it. There was the Michael Stanley Band.
Right.
Is that the same guy?
Yes, it is. Absolutely.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I know roommates had, or at least one roommate had at least one of his records. So I've heard his music. I can't imagine if I yeah.
It's an interesting, this is going to be mostly me and Danny and Tim's music scene, but I think you'll have fun with this because he made one solo album, and it was well received by critics whatsoever. And his second one came out in 1973. And here are the people who played on this album with him. He was still a solo artist at this point. Joe Walsh, Joe Vitale, Kenny Passarelli, Joe Lawla, David Sanborn, Bill Szymczyk, Richie Furay, Dan Fogelberg, Jay Giles.
Wow.
We're all on that album, and probably the best
all
notes.
Favorites there.
Yeah.
Well,
and apparently,
what was the album called?
Yeah, and it was called Friends and Legends, and it was recorded in Colorado. Sure. And one of the reasons it's called Friends and Legends is because he's got so many legends on there. And it just shows, you could not get better backing. It was, MCA was the label. The producer is Bill Szymczyk. I mean, it's just a who's who of, and right. The biggest song on there is called "Let's Get the Show on the Road," which he released, and the Michael Stanley Band did about 7 times. And it's a great song, and it went nowhere. The album went nowhere. Part of the reason given is the fact that this all-star group was not going to tour with Michael Stanley. And so That's when he made the Michael Stanley Band. And the epilogue to this fateful story is that the Michael Stanley Band became sort of a legendary band in Cleveland. And, they became a big-time band there, sold out arenas, whatever, sort of Midwest rock. And he eventually became the afternoon DJ on the rock station in Cleveland in 1990, and he still is the afternoon DJ at age 73, and the Michael Stanley Band still performs and still draws big crowds in that area. That's really kind of a cool musical tale, but I think it encompasses everything about music. I mean, you could not have gotten an artist whose music was kind of respected, although it's kind of meat and bones Midwest rock, I'll tell you that.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But to have that support, MCA, one of the top producers, all those dudes, and you really don't make it, that's pretty amazing.
Yeah, especially for back then. But it's kind of a mystery. You don't just no reason why some bands make it and others don't, and others could be better than the bands that are making it. We listened to this local band the other night, my wife and I, called Ghosty, and it's just mystifying why they didn't become, like I'm talking about bands like Newport Photographers, that they should be at least that big because their music is that good or even better. And I don't know, the music world is so whimsical sometimes, and it's just a crapshoot, and there's no explaining why, mediocre music makes it, then some really talented people don't.
Absolutely the case. Well, we hope that we start to get closer to a point where we can actually go out and see people who we think should be famous once again, right?
Yeah, I can't wait. I'm really missing it.
Absolutely. You must, I do this particular job, a lot of it's inside, but you do miss the personal interaction of the crowds and things like that. And for somebody like you, whose life was so built around shows and everything else, you're doing a pretty good job if you're having real withdrawal, man.
I know. And, I really feel for the bands and the musicians, because it's such an innate part of them. It's their identity. And it's just really weighing on a lot of them to not be able to play with each other and to play before crowds. They're making the best of it, but I really feel for them. And the venue owners, too, because they're having a really hard time.
Well, we'll see where we are in a couple of weeks, Tim. Always fun.
Okay, sounds good, Dave.
We hope you enjoyed the latest Danny Klingscale Reasonably Irreverent podcast. Come back soon for something fresh and new. This podcast was made possible by our great sponsors like the law offices of Kenneth McRae, developing a unique strategy for your family law case. Divorce can be civil law, not civil war.